we don't come to a place where the self becomes permanent and locked in, because that is not the self. That is the integration of forms of energy and consciousness that have come through the projected, as a projected shadow, that we have integrated into the self. And then we say, this is who I am, or what I am, and I'm always going to be this, and we find a stagnant energy. We get what is called, we get into a rut, and then we wonder why life doesn't feel good anymore. And that is because the self is always being discovered. It is always changing. It is fluid, and it requires a support system that is of acceptance and can allow for the reflection, to reflect on something, to ponder on something, to reflect on it, is to become neutral towards it, and to go, isn't this interesting that this was my energy pattern? Often when we're triggered, if we can watch our energy pattern and the way in which we are responding, we will get a lot of insight into what is driving our consciousness and what is driving the energy of our lives. And if it is driving that consciousness and that energy from a place of fear, from a place of resistance and judgment, then that is the shadow. That is the shadow. We are in conflict with the self. We are battling and at war within the self, and we are unable to trust the self, because we are surrounded by the shadow consciousness and energy. Okay, and this isn't going to be for everyone, but it's deep, and it goes into the emotional underworld. It goes into the way in which we find, we navigate and we find the self. Okay, because we are not what the world has made us out to be, and that is a huge relief. When we begin to do shadow work, what are we doing? We are offering the self freedom, because we are doing the soul work and we are evolving as more light. We are coming into more of our light because we are giving ourselves the permission to do so. That is to trust the self. Employ the awareness and non-judgment of the silent witness, and see all the ways in which you don't trust yourself. That is so precious. It is gold. It is revelation right before you. It is the mirror. Rebalancing of the two worlds, the world outside of you and the world within you. The rebalancing of that, and figuring out what it is. What are those aspects of self that you want to hold on to, that are of value to you? The supportive self and the controlling self. And we can see that as a reflection out in the world. We can find people that are extremely controlling, and they want they want you to be the person that they think you should be. And then you have the supportive self that is within, and the supportive self in terms of the people that we are selective in terms of the people that we allow entry into our lives. Okay. And finally, the energetic space. So we go through the journey, and we figure out those things that are those ways in which we're not trusting ourselves, and we take 2 steps back, and we become the witness, and we rebalance the 2 worlds, and we figure out what it is that we what our heart really wants, and we let the heart speak, and we find the supportive person within the self and within the environment. Now we move into the energetic space. So this is where we begin to create a space. We create a space, we create a routine, we create an environment where that supports that heart energy in its quest, and we simplify our own practice and the steps that we are taking towards the self, towards acceptance of the self, and in creating the sacred space for that self to be heard, to be felt, to be seen, to be expressed. So we are not looking to the external world to reflect the acceptance. And the support. We are looking to the internal world to reflect the acceptance and support that we need to trust that self, and to create the energetic space is to say we are accepting more of our authentic self, not the self that responds in fear or resistance or judgment, but the self that is truly there, that needs a channel, a form of expression in your everyday life. So we are honoring that self. We are bringing that self to the surface. And, when I talk about energetic space, I am talking about holding on to things that have meaning for us, that reflect the capacity of that trusting what is within us. Okay, so we are creating a place, an environment of flow, an environment of supporting the self, an environment of putting things in our environment that are a reflection. So we are creating an environment that reflects how we see ourselves. We are investing in routine and in environment and in reflection within our home, within our garden, within our workplace. We are tweaking certain aspects of our daily life so they become the mirror reflection of that thing that we want to trust within ourselves. Okay, so that when you come to the crossroads where you are stepping forward, you are stepping into that new version of yourself, and you are trusting that self, even when reflections turn up that reflect fear, judgment, resistances to what you're doing, that you have the resilience and the capacity to find your own true reflection and to trust that self. Okay, we build those things into our daily practice, into our reflection, what is in our home, what we put up on our walls, the quotes that we have on the fridge, all these things, we begin to collect them because they resonate and are a part of the reclaiming of that part of self. Okay, and we become more familiar, and we begin to build that energy within the self, regardless of what someone else thinks, what someone else says, whatever the situation is happening. We have the foundational principle, spiritual principle of reflection. and it is one of acceptance that we are resonating with, we are moving through our life, and we begin to give the reflections gratitude, and we give those reflections honor and space. Okay. Energetic space is such an important principle, in that it is the space in which we find the voice of our heart. You know, it's not just sound. It's you know, someone can speak through their dance, they can speak through their song, they can speak through their athletic talent, they can speak so many things, expressions of the self, and through what we do and how we turn up and what are our values and how are we building strong the house, the temple, the house. This is our place of spiritual connection, the body. And when we begin to listen to the body, when we begin to listen to the heart, when we begin to find its resonance, when we begin to trust what is being reflected back, once we are able to navigate through the shadow energy, then we are beginning to come into that expression and trust it. So that's energetic space. Then we put the knowledge that we have gained of self into practice. Wisdom is putting your knowledge of self into practice. That is what wisdom is. We can have all kinds of knowledge of all kinds of things, but unless we have knowledge of the self and we can put that knowledge into practice, then we have wisdom. Okay, we have wisdom, spiritual wisdom. Okay, and we can navigate. We can begin to feel stronger the energies and the feedback mechanism of our own body, of our own heart. That will signal to us, you know, when we are moving in trust, in acceptance. And that means that when things that you step forward for and you trust yourself and it doesn't work out and there is a disappointment, there is a test that comes, and we can either become bogged down by the reflection of the disappointment and let it define who we are, or let it tell us, well, that's it, I tried, this is never gonna happen. You know, and so we give up. And the thing is, it's like we are here to push past shadow, and disappointment is just it is the appointment that was made to test everything within us. Have we set it all up? Have we become aware of the ways in which we don't trust? Okay, are we taking one step forward and two step back? You know, are we finding the supportive self, the accepting self? And are we creating the energetic space? Okay, to begin to integrate those things into the knowledge of who we are. Okay, it's an amazing journey. Yes, when we come out of the shadow, we have to then come out of the shell. So oftentimes people can come out of the shadow and bear witness to it and see how they are not trusting the self, but then they don't come out of their shell. They don't actually take the step to trust the self, and that is what what we do once we have all that information, we come out of our shell. And so there is a metaphor there. We think of the butterfly and the cocoon. We think of the transformative energy that is at work within us when we are the driver of the consciousness and the energy. When we are the driver of it, then we are causing that process to begin to happen within us. You know, the butterfly, the cocoon, the old paradigm, and the shift that takes place. You know, growing into greater levels of awareness and exploration. The self is found when we become centered and open to the creative energy that it is, and the changing energy that it is, and that we can begin to find more knowledge of the self, of its own beauty, its resonance, its reflection, and its vibration. We can recognize, oh, there's the fear, there's the resistance, and there's the judgment. We can prepare ourselves ahead of time, because then we know what are the triggers and what is the shadow energy that we are dealing with, okay? And we can accept that, yes, that was part of my consciousness, that was part of my energy, that was you know, in shadow, and then we come out of that shadow. So